Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Branco Broadcast. My name is Bob Branco. This evening we have with us, for a reappearance, author Jalil Mortazavi. He has written a book called From Iran to America, Changes, Choices, and Challenges. We've had him on the show before. But recently he took a trip, and he's here to tell us all about his escapades and adventures. Welcome back, Jalil.
Hi there, this is Karen.
Welcome back, Jalil.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the invitation. And first of all, let me begin by wishing our Jewish friend happy Rosh Hashanah. I know that started from yesterday, and hope that they all will have a good New Year. Well, folks, here's what happened. In the late April of this year, we heard the news that my mother hospitalized due to heart condition, and my sister had called and told my wife about it. He said, my mother wanted to see us. She's afraid that something might happen to her. So we decided to rush home and to see her. And along the way, we decided, since we always travel with Lufthansa, and decided to visit with my wife's cousin who lives in Frankfurt, Germany. So that went very well. We took a late night flight here, arrived very early in Frankfurt, and so the weather was very nice. We picked up from the airport, went to his house, and had a very nice couple of days visit with him. And so overall, we got rested since overnight flight. I don't know how many of you know, I am not crazy about flying, obviously, but usually I do what I have to do. There is no other way to go overseas without flying, unless you went to take a boat. That takes a long time, so it wouldn't work. So Diana had a wonderful time because she was watching her favorite movie, and along the way she wanted to explain to me. I was just pretending that obviously I was having a good time just as much as she did, even though I wasn't. So anyway, that 6.5 hours flight, she had a good time. Watched movies, slept, ate, wake up, watch her movie, so that worked out fine. So after a couple of days visit with my wife's cousin in Frankfurt, so we rested, ready to go to the rest of the flight, which is another almost 6 hours from Frankfurt to Tehran, capital city of Iran. So we arrived there, which the way that the flight goes, you arrive about 1:30 a.m. So by the time you checked out, go to custom and so on, and of course temperature is usually over there very high, and so we were picked up with my brother, and my nephew came to the airport, so they had to have 2 cars because of our luggage and so on. So we went to, our family has a 2-bedroom apartment just for the guests. It's finished, it's always there, and has everything in it. So when we go there, usually we use that apartment, and also other guests from outside the town, when they come with their family and all that stuff. For convenience, works out fine. And so also they made sure Diana had some of her leftover toys from when she was a little baby. And so we rested there for a couple of days, and of course visiting back and forth with my mother in the hospital, although she came home the very next day and felt better. And so she told the doctor that she had to get out of the hospital because her son was coming from United States. Anyway, then my wife decided to take Diana to see her mother, which is about an hour away from Tehran. And so she went to visit with them for a week or so. So I decided to stay full time in my mother's house, so left the apartment. Week later, my brother and I came to pick up something. I don't know what I was looking for. So as soon as we came in, I went to bedroom to pick up my coat. I don't know what I was looking for. So I find all kind of clothes on the floor. And I said, oh my God. Then my brother says, oh, maybe Sarah was trying to wash some clothes or looking for some clothes for Diana. And I said, but why would she throw everything on the floor? It was just on the floor all over the place from the bureau. And so when I went to look for my coat, and it wasn't there where I usually put. And so I was just all upset, see what the heck is going on. So I picked up the phone and called my wife in her mother's house. I said, why would you want to throw everything on the floor? She said, throw what? I said, all these clothes. She says, I didn't put any clothes on the floor. I said, I put my coat there and it wasn't there, so where do you keep all these things? And she knew me. She says, oh my God, don't tell me we had to break in. I said, break in? So I told my wife, my brother, he checked, he said, oh my God, yeah, things are upside down, and looked at the balcony window, said, yeah, they broke the window from there and somehow managed to open the balcony door and got in. So anyway, we had break-in, and looks like that took some of the stuff that I had, and God knows what else belonged to the apartment. And then so I said, oh my God, they took some of the travel document that we had. And I said, oh brother, I know that I had like 200 euro, because I had some euro with me in case if we needed to spend in Germany, and which we never did. And so that was in my coat pocket. All of them were gone, but those are things where it wouldn't matter, the euro and all of that. What it really mattered, that travel document, we couldn't leave the country without those. So anyway, we called the police. The police came and obviously did some investigation, and so gave us some report to say that, robbery took place, break-in from window. So it simply just obviously acknowledged what happened. They usually do some report, give you a copy of it. So that did help in terms of going and applying for the travel document. And then obviously I had to go from place to place, and it takes a long time. And the government office over there don't move as fast as you want them to do, and because of investigation. So then obviously I was so upset. I said, oh, brother, now what? And we decided to have a 6 weeks visit. Turned out to be almost 5 months, or a little over 5 months. So I guess as I was trying to figure it out, what I'm going to do, which reminded me of a book years and years ago I read, I think it was from Dale Carnegie, and he said, if there is any remedy, I think this from that book, probably many of you have read it in the past, How to Make Friends and Influence Others. So anyway, I was trying to make some friend and influence of others, but it wasn't working. And I came up with this passage I remember many, many years ago, and it says that for any problem, if there is any remedy in the world, go find it. And if there isn't, never mind it. So I said, well, I can't do anything about it, so I just have to follow the orders and see what happens. So I filed all the fill out papers and copy of the police report, and they said, they let me know because we had to obviously get those travel documents in order to leave the country, and so that took a good 2 months. But along the way, I said, well, I might as well enjoy it. Diana had her 6th birthday in May 16. We celebrate that. And my brother decided to have a lamb, bring in a live lamb and slaughter it. That's one of the traditions. And they slaughtered the live lamb and obviously made lamb dishes with rice. We had about, 50, maybe 50-some, close to 60 guests. And Diana had a ball because she had so much gift in her 6th birthday. Anything imagine. I mean, that 2-bedroom apartment was just full of her gift. Anywhere I walked, and she keeps saying, Daddy, be careful. That's my such and such. Daddy, be careful. Don't touch and mix this up. Daddy, be careful. I said, okay, so I'll just stay here and don't move. You tell me when I should move. And so she just had a ball with those, from bicycle all the way to makeup kit and sewing machine. God, anything imagine they brought it for her. So she had one heck of a birthday party that she still remembers. So then I think from the travel, probably carrying those luggages, I was beginning to have a back pain. And I said, oh, brother, no. I mean, I used to have a disc, maybe 20 years ago. I said, don't tell me I started having, or maybe I'm just, nervous wreck or whatever. So anyway, I find a swimming pool, and with my niece's husband, he also loves swimming. So we went to swim just about every other day. And there was this swimming pool belonged to military, but it's open for public. And the public, of course, pays, every time you use, you pay $5. And probably the best swimming pool I ever seen. And clean, perfect because of the military. Had a huge swimming pool, had a sauna, steam room, wall pool. Boy, that's probably the best part. Of course, for indoor. And so we were using that like every other day. And so I got all better. All of my back pain and all of that went away. So it worked out perfect. And so then after that, going back and forth, eventually we got this travel document. And then it's funny part of the deal was, at the meantime, I decided to publish the Persian version of my book, since I had so much time in my hand. And so I worked out with a college girl who was a PhD candidate in literature. So I worked with her, and so we put this Persian version together. But in order to publish a book, you got to submit that thing to government office, and they have to approve it if you're really going to publish or intended to sell or any place. They have to approve before they publish. So anyway, I submitted there, and so we made book out of it, but I still haven't heard whether or not we are allowed to publish it there. And that takes a little time. And they're trying to figure it out if this is not a propaganda against them. So even though I brought the copy in Persian here, but are not allowed officially to be published yet until they approve. So another funny thing happened that since I needed this travel document to leave, and I had to sign my consent to say that I am allowing my wife and my daughter to leave the country, because if I sign those documents, they are free to leave the country. And the man who was doing this, obviously, it's like almost like a lawyer's office. And he said, before you sign this, let me explain to you. If you sign this, they can literally leave the country without you. So therefore, I just want you to know what you're signing. I said, don't worry. If they leave, they won't leave without me because we came together. So anyway, he said, by law, I have to explain that to you. So that worked out, and so eventually we got the travel document back, and along the way, of course, we were just visiting with family, friends, all over. So, in fact, that I don't know whether or not you guys know or not, when my mother first came to United States, it's like almost 30 years ago, she went to Turkey to apply for a visa. And since in those days there was war going on, and she couldn't get the visa, they refused her. And so at the time I was working in WBZ, I told Dan Ray about it. And Dan Ray, of course, had a connection with the Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill. And he made a phone call, and they called the embassy in Turkey. And then after that phone call, they immediately reversed the decision and granted my mother a visa, and she came. And she came to Boston, and so a week later, she came to WBZ and met Dan Ray and personally thanked Dan. And so, and in the gathering, she still brags about it because I know she told her doctors in the hospital the story, and then also was telling. And so she was asking me, how was Dan? I said, Dan retired from TV because Dan used to work in TV in those days and doing fine on the radio. And so she sent a gift, some pistachio, to Dan and then thanked him. So I sent that to Dan with the note, and the very next day Dan called me And I wasn't here to lift a message. I'm going to play the message of Dan Ray. You all know Dan Ray is, so see what he says.
Hi, Jalil. This is Dan Ray. I just today received that lovely letter and that lovely remembrance from your mom. I'm glad to hear that she's doing better, that she's out of the hospital. Jalil, this is my number. My direct line is 617-787-7033. I remember you well. I remember your mom well, although it was many years ago. I'd love to talk with you. If you could call me and leave me a good time to call you back, I'll get in touch with you. The letter brought back some really wonderful memories. Jalil Dan Ray from WBC.
So that was at least get some memory back. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the rest, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of my travel story. But if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer it. That might be easier to see.
I have one. So I have a question regarding your daughter Deanna's schooling. How was that affected?
That didn't affect it at all, since she had about a month or so from here to go. So Deanna took some private lesson there, took some drawing classes there. She also took some music lesson there. But probably the best part of it, because when Diana got there, obviously couldn't speak Persian or Farsi as they call it there. And so whatever she was saying, we had to translate, or, every minute coming to me or her mom, Mom, what does this kid say? What does that kid say? Because there are so many kids in our family, her cousins and nieces, and so she had a good time with them. But as a result, in a matter of maybe a month or so, she was speaking Farsi so well, and to the point, even whatever sometimes I wanted to say or her mom wanted to say something to her in English that we didn't want anybody else to know, then all of a sudden she was answering back in Farsi. And she learned so well because that's the only way she can talk to her grandmothers for both sides of the family, her cousins and the niece, and then, uncle and their family. And so they were all very impressed. In fact, we were very impressed at how fast. I know kids learn language so fast, but this was just unbelievable. And even today, back and forth at home, and she used lots of those Persian words, and sometimes talking to us, or even some places she want to say something that other people, she just doesn't want anybody else to know. She says in Persian to us. So at least in that way, she talks back and forth through the computer with a relative down there, and so without any trouble at all. So that's probably the positive part of this trip, that Diana learned Persian. And of course, we came back on September 2nd or 3rd, so it took us about 4 or 5 days to register her, and so she back to school in Brookline and living happily ever after.
Nice.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Jay, it's Steve. I was wondering, do you get a sense of the average Iranian, what they think of the United States with all the propaganda going on? Does that affect the average person in your experience?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have not only average Iranian, I also have above average, because I've been invited few places to speak about this subject, especially media in the United States. And overall, average Iranian really has very favor of the United States. I haven't really noticed any animosity at all, even though there are lots of propaganda. But at the meantime, we also have a satellite TV broadcast from the United States. So average Iranian really don't care what the government says about the United States. In my own, as a matter of fact, I was invited to speak to a bunch of college professors, and we were discussing overall relationship between the U.S. and Iran, and at the meantime, this nuclear deal. And in fact, some of those college professors expressed that they wish to visit the United States, but of course, they follow the relation for a long time. So Iran probably the only country in the Middle East after Israel that probably about 80% of the people are very favorable of the United States. In fact, they showed this in the 9/11 when the tragedy of 9/11 took place. Some of those Arab countries, even though the United States has very close relation, and they were all celebrating. Iran was the only country people demonstrated on the street without any permission from the government, sympathizing with the American people based on the tragedy of 9/11. This is not what I'm saying. This was reported by Tom Friedman in New York Times. And I mean, still, if you research, you could see it. In fact, that the way that he worded it, he said, which other countries are celebrating, this tragedy. He mentioned a bunch of countries and Iran, and then his answer was, the only country was support us and the Middle East. It was Iranian people. So therefore, to answer your question, Steve, no problem at all.
Well, that's good to hear.
And, Jay, what about Saudi Arabia along with Iran feeding prodigious amounts of money into supporting terrorist groups like ISIS?
No, that's one of the differences between the Iran and the Saudi Arabia, because they have obviously running what they call a proxy war. Saudi Arabia spend a lot of money in ISIS, and ISIS, of course, fundamental Sunnis, and try to fight Shiite, which is Iran. And so therefore is a huge difference between Saudi Arabia and Iran in terms of the support for ISIS. Iran is totally against ISIS. Saudi Arabia is supporting ISIS because the ISIS actually taking the ideology from Saudi Wahhabism, which is a very fundamental Sunni religion.
For a government that supposedly is against ISIS, they don't take a stand. They seem to be still funding money to keep terrorism going.
Absolutely. That's been widely reported. Incidentally, now these days, coming more and more obvious that even 9/11, which those 19 hijackers, 15 of them, everybody knows they were from Saudi Arabia. That's one of the reasons they didn't want to release 9/11 Commission report, 28 pages of them, because clearly showed that Saudi government, or at least some entity within the government, was aiding these people. In fact, that New York Times and other papers reported how Saudi Consulate General in Los Angeles took 2 of those guys when they arrived to Los Angeles to special places. And then that consulate, right after 9/11, immediately left the United States and still living in Saudi Arabia. In fact, that Senator Graham from Florida at the time used to be a Florida senator, and he, as early as a few months ago, he said when the investigation went to see that, it took a long time before Saudi government allowed American investigators to just talk to those people. And they said, no, they were just supporting them because they were Saudi Arabia and they didn't know what they were up to. But report shows otherwise. So that's why in Florida still there are about, I believe, 500 pages of a special report that these guys were staying with some Saudi family. So you're right, Ellen, on that, because Saudi Arabia turned out to be the biggest Wahhabi terrorist support, which is...
Well, they are, and so is Iran. And matter of fact, a country like Iran, who claims to be a friend of the United States and is interested in the United States, there is a lot of animosity and a lot of shipping from paramilitary groups that are coming out and attacking the shipping lanes and Navy vessels going through the Persian Gulf and all through that area. So that is going to become one hell of a hot seat if it continues.
Yeah, you're right on that, but there's a difference between the government and the people. And the government's position, obviously, they are not friendly to the United States government because they feel that the United States government is a threat to them. They're trying to overthrow them. And that has been some problem. But although since this nuclear deal, even some part of the government, I felt senses that obviously improved the tie with the United States as well as Europe, that will be beneficial for Iranian economy since the sanctions are being lifted. So that's a big help. And that's why this Rouhani government arguing that in the Iranian parliament very vigorously that this is a good deal and it works out, so we better just continue. But there are some fundamental elements, and that's still the problem in Iran, you're right.
Well, if the Republicans have their way, they're going to rescind that whole thing. You hear it from the whole Republican, the rank and file of Republicans, and Donald Trump as well still wants to rescind that nuclear agreement that Obama made.
Right, but unfortunately, Donald Trump says a lot of things which is not true, and I'll tell you why. The agreement is not just with the United States, it's done with 5 different countries. So it's just one of them happens to be American. So therefore, Donald Trump, by definition, cannot do anything about this because this is done on the international level, not a personal level between the United States and Iran. So therefore, Donald Trump says a lot of things. Of course, latest was his taxes, that he's a genius businessman, but he lost a lot of money and hasn't paid any taxes in the past 18 years. So I wouldn't really pay attention too much of Donald Trump is what we call a political slogan, which is not true.
Jay.
Yes.
Don Bowden here. I'm glad you made it home safe and sound and all that.
Thank you.
You may or may not be aware that both our House and Senate passed a new law. They had to override a presidential veto in order to do it, to allow the 9/11 victims to sue the Saudi Arabian government before their complicity in the 9/11 attack.
Yes, I am aware of that, Don.
Oh, okay.
I've been following that. I'm sorry, I don't want
to... They had to override a presidential veto in order to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While I was there, I was translated. Few of those documents was coming for publication over there, and I knew that was coming, even though Saudi Arabia, as early as a year ago, had to hire 4 different PR and law firms. and they were trying to damage control in case if it happened something like this.
Oh, I know. I heard that too. Yeah.
Exactly. And what happened was, first, they started threatening the United States that they're going to take all of their investment away. And they were talking about like $760 billion. But I'm sure that was a joke because they couldn't. If they did, where else could they take it? The United States, the only safe place for them anyway. That's number one. Number two, and 9/11 family victim, which obviously they had every right to do so because this was just coming, and I'm surprised that, even in Iran, some people were telling me that they were surprised it took so long. He said, of course, that their lobby are so big in the United States.
Years.
Exactly, spend a lot of money, but finally, overwhelmingly, remember, even though the Obama administration lobbied very much both the House and the Senate, he says this might cause a trouble. Other countries might end up suing the United States. They had all kind of arguments, but both Senate and obviously they overwhelmingly voted and over veto, and now that's a law. And after that, this is the funny part. I know some of the Republicans were saying, well, we didn't know it was that bad, and the government didn't explain. I know because the heat was on. They couldn't do otherwise. They really had to pass this law. After all, 9/11 family are big, and they are also working with lots of PR, even though they don't have much money to spend. I know lots of law firms hoping for future. They do the contingency. And so I think, the Saudi Arabia, even though it has a ton of money, now they are running deficit because they involved with this war in Yemen. And now last year, they lost about $100 billion in terms of deficit. They end up borrowing money from outside, so they threatened to take those money away from the United States. Not so much taking it, but they had to use it because they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tell me, Jay, another thing. When you had to apply for new papers, was that a complex process?
Yeah, it was a complex because there were, most of the time when you lose some official papers of travel document to leave the country, it takes investigation to see, what happened with those, whether or not if those documents were stolen, whether or not they will be using for something else. So they had to do all kind of investigation in order to issue me new papers in order to leave the country. Yeah, it was a big process. And the process was that obviously you had no control over it. You just fill out the papers, hope for the best. If they have any question, you keep calling them and so on and so forth. Even though we had some people helping us, but even then, the whole process takes a long time. And they could have done faster, but of course they don't care. He said, that's your problem, you just have to wait.
Yeah. Did you have to prove that you were actually a citizen of the United States?
Oh yeah, no, that's obviously obvious.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh yeah,
right.
Sure. Absolutely, because when you go there, so they know where you're coming from, where do you live, so of course. So that was no problem.
Yeah. One more thing, Jay, if you wouldn't mind, and I hope this question's not too personal. I was concerned about your apartment. You pay rent there. What happened all this time?
No, we paid rent. Nothing happened, and we had a neighbor taking care of our stuff here. And we
okay.
paid fentanyl. Oh, sure. And so we have a very nice neighbor, which
I guess so.
her daughter also going to the same school with Diana. So we were very friendly with them. So they were taking care of our apartment, and on a WhatsApp, which is a kind of a communication and internet. I know you don't have internet service, Don, but so this WhatsApp, we could talk on that back and forth just about every week. Whatever was happening here, she was reporting, and she was talking back and forth with my wife. So that was no problem, of course, because of our good neighbor.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, that helped.
It certainly does, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, Jay, I just want to thank you for wishing me and the other Jewish people on here a Happy New Year. And I'm just glad that you're home and that everything is okay. I'm so relieved. I was really concerned. But I'm very, very glad that you're here. And at least you're going to be here for a while, I'm sure.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Johnny. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Have you talked to Dan Ray since you've been? He just seems like such a wonderful guy.
Exactly. Right. Dan is a wonderful guy. Yeah, I talked to him, and he said that he's going to call me one of these days, and he would like to have me on his program to talk about politics and what's happening in Iran and so on and so forth. And I told him I'll be glad to do it.
Oh, super.
Yeah, Dan is a nice guy. Obviously, he was a big help in terms of his connection in those days with Speaker O'Neill's. In fact, that he introduced me to Speaker O'Neill when he was, I believe, on his book tour when he wrote his memoir at the time. And so I remember meeting him in WBZ. He came, I believe, on Peter Mead program.
Of course, while you were away, Jordan Rich retired.
Oh, Jordan Rich retired?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought I hear. Well, of course, I've heard him doing the promotion, and maybe it's from the old promotion and stuff. So he's no longer doing the show on weekends?
No. He got married, and before he got married, he decided that he wanted to do more things, and he's doing some things for and with BZ, but he doesn't have the weekend show anymore. He decided that he wanted to spend more time with his new wife, and
what happened to his old wife? I know she had cancer.
She passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Recently or some time ago?
I think about maybe 3 years ago, and then about 2 years ago he started going with this woman. I think her name is Roberta. And so all of a sudden he said he was going to retire, and he was on just a few more weekends after that, and then he was gone. But his son is still producing Morgan's show, and now they have, I guess it's every 3 weeks they have alternate weekend hosts, and I think they're calling it Weekend Live or something.
Oh, yeah, no wonder, because I know my day and night was screwed up every night and then. One time I heard this Bruce Stevens that he was, and it's funny though, you mentioned it. When I was working there, Bruce Stevens was hired to take Larry Glick's program on daytime. when they brought Larry Glick daytime, eventually they were trying to get rid of him. And because I know that you had a program director who wanted to juggle. So this Bruce Stevens, because he knew all about music and he was playing music and talk at the same time.
Yeah.
So one time I was on the front desk. I received a phone call, and I believe it was his wife or something, wanted to talk to Bruce Stevens, and he was nearby. I said, Bruce, why don't you go to the sales office? Let me connect you there. And I said, I give you 30 seconds to see how fast you can go. And so anyway, he went there, and I connect him, and the security guard next to me was laughing. He said, Jay, do you know what you just said? I said, no. He said, did you know he was a fat guy, couldn't run? I said, I had no idea.
Maybe he's got his exercise.
Question for you.
I was just unbelievable. You said you have no idea what you said. You said if you can make it in 30 seconds.
I have a question for you, Jay.
I'm going to try.
Oh, gosh.
Jay, I have a question. What does the Middle East feel about our election here in the U.S.?
Well, the election in the United States, more or less, I think that's usually run by big corporations. He says that the election in the United States, even though they have free election, whatever, but he said it's not really free, run by the corporation, and they the one who really control it. People just simply vote, and then after their vote, they have no control over it. So therefore,
I was referring specifically to the candidates.
Oh, the candidate. Well, of course that they don't take Donald Trump seriously because they think of him as a big showman and try to make money, and so that's how he does it. And so in the United States, usually people who are familiar with the Hollywood show business, and they think of him that. But of course, with the Clinton, they know all about her, and at least they know what Clinton is and what she's doing. So she's obviously clear-cut for them since they worked with Clinton in the past. And so during her being in the State Department, and of course negotiation with Iran started when she was there, and her chief of staff, who is now one of the White House's advisor, and obviously used to take a secret trip to country of Oman, negotiating with Iran over there, because Oman, not only very close to the United States, but as well as very close to Iran, and so all this secret negotiation was taken there, and the Clinton's aide was handling that. Was a young man too, as a matter of fact, 38, 39 years old, so he was handling that. So they know all about Clinton, but they are not sure about Donald Trump. They think of him as a big show, so who knows? Even in this country, I think some of the things that... See, Donald Trump makes lots of headlines, but actuality, nobody even questions, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No president can do any of these things he says, because the president, obviously, based on his advisor, whatever he wants to do, the Congress has to approve it. If they don't, how else could he do it? Because if he's going to request some budget, they have to vote for it. I mean, all these Republicans already decided against him. I don't know what else could he do. And at the meantime, that's why many of the Republican donors, they decided to just spend their money for local election. They're trying to keep the Congress in Republicans' hands because they're not sure if Donald Trump is going to win anyway. And so, therefore, I think most of the thing over there, they think pretty much just like some people over here. And Donald Trump is a big show. But, incidentally, there is some cute story about Donald Trump I read not long ago in Washington Post. There is a very famous reporter Dana Milbank. You probably heard the name. And she decided to go spend the night in that Trump International Hotel just opened in Washington, D.C. And apparently it costs a lot of money, like $850 a night.
Ooh-wee.
And she also, she said that, of course, this was, a Washington Post money, not mine. And she said, while I was there, I decided to call front desk. And then she told them that she was Muslim and she would like to have Quran as well as a prayer rug. And 2 minutes later, guess what? They came to the room with Quran, both English as well as Arabic, prayer rug, and also what is that thing to show where the Mecca is? Campus. And so they had campus that to show for which part of the room will face the Mecca. They brought it in 10 minutes. And then so she wrote, she says, he's trying to keep Muslims away from United States, but at the meantime in his hotel provides Quran.
Oh, God.
I mean, this is a document in Washington Post, and this woman writes very well, and she's one of the best, reporters. I mean, she obviously columnist over there. That's twice a week. I don't really believe anything Donald Trump says, and I also don't believe that he's going to help you or me. Never. I mean, he's trying to keep all these illegal aliens outside. No business would allow it because business trying to use this illegal alien with less money to make money for their company. Why do they want to kick him out of this employee here? No way. I mean, I've been hearing this kind of talk in the past 30 years from different candidates. None of them ever did it.
Didn't he hire illegal aliens too? I mean,
I thought.
Exactly.
Yes, he did, Steve. Yeah, he did.
Oh.
We have time for about 2 more questions.
Jay, I have a question.
This is Lauren, and Jay, I just wanted...
Oh, Lauren, good to hear your voice. Please,
yeah, it's good to hear yours, too. I just wanted to tell you I'm glad to hear that your mom's doing okay and that your family's back, and Bob was keeping us informed, and I'm just glad that everything went well and you're here with us again.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be back, and it's nice to hear your voice. Thank you.
Jay, I have a question. What about the women?
We have a gentleman before Marcy. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Hi, Jay. My name is Paul Wick in Eugene, Oregon. American media likes to sort of pine over the good old days of the Pahlavi Shahs, but, it wasn't a good regime for everybody. What would your ideal political order be in Iran?
Well, actually, Pahlavi regime was good only for well-to-do in the society, and they were minority. But of course, they had the power and the money, and they enjoyed it as long as it lasted. But for ordinary citizens, really wasn't working, and so therefore, that caused a lot of problem. Eventually, the revolution. And now, exactly the opposite. Those majority became and running the government. These well-to-do people during the Shah's regime, either they left the country all over the world, including the United States, or some decided to stay there. They don't care for this regime. But since they obviously had the money and businesses, so they just keep on doing what they've been doing and then complaining all the time. And also some people over there, they're just not making enough, so they don't really like the government. But of course, they're free to criticize any way they want. Not in an organized fashion, but I heard them all over the place, including even some government office. They really speak loud, and they just simply complain, this government is so corrupt, they just taking the money, spending the way that their people want. So I hear complaint all the time, and so I guess overall, my taking, knowing the people or talking to them, people just don't like religious government, period. Because religious government has a certain rules and regulation. Not everybody follows. For example, while we were there were a month of Ramadan, which you have to obviously fast from sunrise to sunset. Summertime, temperature 95 degrees, you can't really fast from sunrise to sunset unless you are really a religious nut, right? However, there are some people, that just didn't care for these things, even though you can eat outside, but everybody was eating inside. And although that few time I know that some of these, the young teenager or little, they were smoking because I could smell as we walking by, and I asked my brother, is this, he said, yeah, there are some people do that, smoke, he said, they don't care. And unless they see him by some government official, they give him warning, whatever, but you can't arrest everybody based on those things. And then, of course, no restaurant allows open until about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, that is official. And then like in the restaurant, coffee shop, none of those things will be open during the month of Ramadan. But supermarkets are open. I mean, you could go in supermarket, buy things and eat there. Although the supermarket probably wouldn't encourage it, but they can't do anything about it. So therefore, if people don't want to follow that kind of religious thing, nobody can do anything about it. That's what I noticed.
All right, Marcy, go ahead.
How are the women and the men treated as far as equal pay?
Well, in Iran, as a matter of fact, that's one of the funny part that if you tell the story to here in America, nobody would believe it. Man and woman in Iran, they treat based on their education and their management. For example, if there's a position, let's say, that you are working in a government office or any other entity or private business, they pay for the position. They don't care if you are a man or woman. There are positions that woman makes more money than men because they are more educated and more skilled. And so therefore, over there, this doesn't matter at all. They just go based on your education, your skill, your experience. And of course, Iran, woman probably has just about any position you can imagine in all different businesses. I saw women from lawyers, doctors, and in fact that recently even some cab driver a woman, but I'm told that they only pick up women. In fact, firefighter we have as a woman, which is for Middle East, that's unusual.
Well, it looks like our time is up. Jay, you were very informative. I want to thank you for coming back again to talk to us. And we're very glad that you're back home safe and sound, that everything's behind you there. And thanks for your appearance tonight.
Thank you very much, Bob, for having me. And thank you, people who are listening. I sure enjoy it, and hope to talk to you guys on the chat room sometime.
Great.
Take care, Jay. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye.